We're live, 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 live. I'm what you need. You're watching my channel. This is a live stream. Those of you who are guests, again, it's for you, what you need. So you can hop on at any time on this live stream, say your piece, and leave. All right? Be respectful. Control your microphone, and we're good to go. Topic Legends Only. That is the league. Mike Tyson is going to kick off with the fight versus Roy Jones Jr., 3 hour event in California. Looking forward to it. But a lot of people say, well, why is Mike Tyson so popular today? Why is he? I'm gonna tell you why. The man worked his ass off to get that popularity that you're seeing right now, to keep his name relevant. He was on TV, he was in cartoons, he was in movies. Mike Tyson was in commercials. Mike Tyson was doing all kinds of different events and getting involved in many different business ventures. He had his own sort of life story that he was going around the country talking about. Mike Tyson is managed by his wife, I do believe, and he's a very, very smart man. There's a reason why his name is more prominent than Evander Holyfield or George Foreman right now. George Foreman did a brilliant thing with his grill. Mike Tyson stayed relevant by keeping his name out there in the public. So while a lot of hardcore fans will say, "Oh, Mike Tyson's overrated," no, he's not. I'll tell you why. Boxing wise, yeah, he's a little bit overrated boxing wise. I was listening to Kenny Porter and Sean Porter talk about how fighters today, all the fights are arranged really. Your career is kind of arranged for you. In a way, he's right. Someone kind of plots the course of your career. Matchmakers help to develop you, etc. It's not exactly as he says, but the point is, it is sort of arranged for you when you get into boxing because you don't know, you don't know nothing about boxing like that. Which is why we have a promoter, manager. The promoter arranges the matchmakers, the venue, the event, promotion of the event. All right. So anyway, Mike Tyson, legends only. I want a lot of people to understand something. Them two guys are going to go at it, and they're going to go at it hard. One thing you're going to be guaranteed of: Mike Tyson's trying to launch off an event, and as a result of trying to launch off that event, there is no way that Mike Tyson is going to try and make that event be a failure. That means resulting in the death of either Roy Jones Jr. or himself. All right, that's the last thing he's thinking about. Okay, not that it matters. They're doing what they love, and that's what matters. But they're gonna give it 100%. They're gonna make it show for all the fans. So don't expect them to come. They're gonna go hard at one another. Now, when they're here, they'll have headgear. Tyson hasn't been in the ring sparring anybody in a long time, so that'd be interesting. I don't know if Roy has been doing sparring, but Roy has always been in the gym, training fighters, etc. So let me give you two sides of that fight. The first side of the fight is Mike Tyson comes out, that's the power, speed, etc. And gets Roy out early. And he's looking to stop him. Now, for that to happen, he's got to get Roy's timing. He's got to get familiar to the tearing of the ring, get familiar to it, get that ring rust off of him. He had ring rust for like many, many years. I would say it'd be more of a challenge for Mike Tyson than Roy. Okay? Roy's going to have, he's going to have, Roy have a certain skill with his footwork. And that is unique. So Mike Tyson going up against Roy, the tricky thing is going to be Roy footwork. Roy has tricky footwork. All right? From the timing of it to the how he works his rhythms. He don't have that quicker footwork than Mike Tyson. You know, Mike Tyson is explosive. fast and quick when he's coming at you. When he's not, he's just stationary, watching you from the outside. So he displays a burst of speed and power and all of that. And then if you kind of, he doesn't succeed at doing anything, he'll be relentless at you, coming at you, coming at you, come. And he'll stop and he'll stand up and watch you. Okay. So style-wise, it's going to be a very interesting fight, especially for a 54-year-old or 51-year-old, because they're older. And they're going to tire quicker. All right? But it's got to make for an exciting fight. The hype and everything that's building up here needs to make for that so Tyson can maintain it. He can continue the legends only. I saw Julio Cesar Chavez versus Jorge Arce. Hell of a fight. If they can put on something, anything close to that, that legends only is going to pick on like wildfire. I hope it does. It's not necessarily about who wins the fight. Okay? It's about seeing their skills on display. Tyson can come in any weight he wants. Roy can come in any weight he wants. Exhibitions can end in KOs, but I don't think there are any judges in the exhibition. I don't even know if they have points. All we know is we just watch to see all the nice skills and abilities that are displayed in the ring. Everybody different. So it'd be interesting to see this fight. And it chalked up interest in me. I don't usually are interested in these things, but it just took it to the next level. Michael's building it, and it's built. And it's a great opponent. A lot of people say, well, Roy is small. Evander Holyfield would have been better. Listen to Antonio Tarver say that. But no, not really. It's a good fight. Evander's still training, so I hope he keeps training. We'll see what Mike got left in the tank. We'll see what Roy got left in the tank. The method is a 54-year-old and a 51-year-old. So don't expect it to be like a 20-year-old Mike Tyson versus a 20-year-old Roy. It's not going to be looking like that. Okay. You're going to have coordination issues. They're going to miss each other sometimes. Somebody might catch somebody with a good shot, and then it gets really exciting. But even if they have sparred, it's different to being in that ring and actually facing the guy at that given point in time. So it's going to be an interesting fight, no doubt about it. It got my attention. It got the whole world's attention. I saw it broadcasted on some platform that had nothing to do with boxing. Mike Tyson and his campaign crew have been posting up in boxing groups. Mike Tyson's name been out there for a lot. You don't know how hard these guys work just to keep them relevant and then build up to something. So all of that was going on in the background. And it is the name, it is the fight so far. And it might just help boxing keep, people get excited about boxing. It's all important. And what I like about it is I'm trying to explain to people boxing is about entertainment. So yeah, you have the legitimate professional fights. Those are important. Then again, and we had a bunch of professional fights on DAZN last night. Virgil Ortiz, he stopped Sammy Vasquez. Shanicia Estrada knocked out her opponent in the first, what was it, 9 seconds or something like that. Mm. A lot of people say that you shouldn't have opponents like that facing Estrada. Warm-up fight. Stay busy fight. How can you guys go in on Estrada and then you give a break to the guys from the past? Okay? Ashimo had a number of tune-up fights before he had a light heavyweight championship fight. It's a tune-up fight. Fair enough. You said, what does it accomplish? It takes the nerves off the boxer. They're back in the professional boxing ring. No. Makes the boxer look sensational. You know, like Kenny Porter said, it's something that's planned. It's to get the fans excited for the fighter, see the fighter again. Remember, it's entertainment. Right? So, Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones is entertaining. Your imagination going, man. So the what if Roy had faced Mike Tyson is kind of being answered, sort of. Right? Style-wise, we'll see what happens when they go in the ring. We won't really know definitively because they're not young anymore and it's not a professional bout, but you know, see how the mix and match would go. You know? We talk about fantasy fights. Now we might be able to get some fantasy fights we wanted to see. And probably people from different eras face one another as well. Once they're up in age, just see the little strategy, little tricks they might do for one another. You know? I was watching Joe Cortez last night. Throwing them hands at 76 years old. Man. I love boxing. So, I had a couple of fights last night. A couple fights. And they were all good. You know. The sport of boxing is doing well, thriving. That's all I'm interested in, boxing. Don't care about WWE or wrestling. Don't care about MMA. I love boxing. You know? So it's brilliant marketing on Tyson's part. I got him. They got him in the public's eye still. Irrelevant. And then when people see his clips, how explosive he was, how quick he was at getting people out of there. They're gonna be interested in this fight. No? So Mike Tyson has a reputation of being vicious, fast, getting the job done early. You know, the sensational part is he was mowing down people left, right, and center. They had that foundation. Or stirred up people's imaginations. From a fan perspective, you know, it was seen as hella great. That's why I said the difference between greater and better. There are much better fighters than Mike Tyson. If you were to face Mike Tyson, they'd probably chop him up like nothing. Roy is a better fighter than Mike Tyson. All right? But greater. How you boost your star power, how your star power is be able to follow Mike Tyson's life, his ups and downs, or what it feels like they know him. That makes him a darling. They want to see him win. They want to root for him. Because like Pacquiao, he's been the underdog. Like Pacquiao, he was dominant, but then he fell. And they like to see a guy rise back up. You know, all the IRA, RS stuff and all of that. They want to see him rise back up. See? So, Iron Mike Tyson is very relevant and popular today. And he's been in films, a whole bunch of films. He's been working his ass off to get himself back up to this position. So I don't envy him at all for his promotion. We were talking about it. Sugar Ray Leonard reminds people of the Four Kings. You know? And that's promotion. That's his bread and butter. That's why you don't hear certain fighters downing them, because they know that's part of a Ray's thing. Part of his gig. You know? But you know, these boxers achieved what we'll only dream of achieving. You know. All right. There's fights to talk about and recap. I'll talk about it at a later time. But for now, I'm what you need. I'm out. Oh, it's in the Liga Championship. Gutter Smoke tried to raise a point. Not quite sure what his point was. He was saying, what's the factual evidence showing that a guy who's a lineal champion in the lower division, if he moves up a division and gets beat by somebody above him, if when he returns to his division, he's saying he's not lineal champion still. I didn't understand it. It defies every single reason or logic on the planet, because one, you have several lineal champions. This is simple reasoning and logic, right? But nonetheless, you have several lineal champions. You have a lineal champion per division. The man who beat the man. If a guy in a division above that guy beats him, as we've seen, one, that person who beats him in the division above is not beating him and taking his lineal championship, because it's not in the division the guy's lineal champion. It's really straightforward common sense. So if, for instance, I am the 140-pound champion like Ricky Hatton, I jump up to 147 and I challenge the lineal champion up there, who's Floyd Mayweather, and I get beat. Now, if I had beaten Floyd Mayweather, I would be two-time lineal champion. I'll be a lineal champion for welterweight, and I'll be a lineal champion for junior welterweight. So that's the stakes right there. He saw, hey, man, I can really make my name and then be pound for pound #1 in the world. Are you kidding me? So he went for it. The risk versus reward was really good. The reward was huge. The risk is huge, but it was worth the reward. So he went up. Now, because he got beat, Get the Smoke is trying to make a point that I don't know why he's reaching for it, but Ricky Hatton wasn't lineal champion when he faced Manny Pacquiao because Floyd Mayweather beat him. That makes no damn sense. Like, I don't even know where he was lineal champion of 140. Like, that don't change, okay? The guy who he beat, who Ricky Hatton beat, was a 140-pounder. He wasn't a 147-pounder. And remember, there's only one lineal champion per division. So guys who jump multiple divisions and beat lineal champions there, it's impressive, yeah. But the other thing is, you know, You're talking about suddenly, and we have to use logic and reasoning here. There's no other way around this. Suddenly, a guy who beats another guy who is a champion at a particular weight class but goes up and gets beat, all of a sudden that guy loses his linear championship that he was in his previous division. That makes no sense. Okay, it just doesn't. Like there's certain things that I told Get the Smoke. There's certain things I just don't entertain. I don't even understand why you even making this statement. This makes no sense. You have specific divisions and lineal champions in them. They are specific. The lineal champion is specific to a division. It's not. It's not just I'm lineal champion of everything. That's dumb. There's no such thing. Okay. So if you get beat outside of your division, what we can say, and this is where I get credit. I give credit to guys who beat guys out of their division. I beat the lineal champion of X division or Y division. So when Andre Ward beat Chad Dawson, he beat the lineal champion of light heavyweight. But because Chad Dawson wasn't that light heavyweight when Andre Ward beat him, he cannot claim that he is the lineal champion of light heavyweight because he fought at super middleweight. There are a number of reasons why we don't denote lineal championship onto a guy who faces another guy in a different division to which he's lineal champion. First of all, the guy who is facing the other guy may not be at his best when he faces him, whereas in his respective division, he may be his best. If you want to face a lineal champion and get the lineal championship, point number 2, you've got to go to their division and beat them, not to a division which they are not lineal champion of. This is common sense again, but this is point number 2. It's not, I don't know if the lineal championship is literally laid out, but there are examples that show you this, okay? And this is where all these documents and stuff come from. And we have enormous a plethora of cases for this. Archie Moore is one of the examples. I mean, you have what was his name? Jose Napoles is another example. Okay, we have Carmen Basilio. We have a number of examples, and these guys got beat, and the lineal championship passed on to the next guy. Okay, well, not Archie Moore. Archie Moore was undefeated, but the lineal championship was passed on to the next guy. I mean, he was asking me to get examples of that, but I was like, dude, I just like, to me, that just makes it it's not even counterintuitive. It just makes no sense to try and debate and argue these things. I don't understand. It makes no sense. Like, why would we go into a nonsensical realm? So I always try to explain to people, because see, some people, they have agendas. There's an agenda behind that reasoning. His reasoning is, well, Floyd beat Hatton, so he's lineal champion of 140, and Pacquiao didn't face the lineal champion, which is bullshit. All right, he faced the lineal champion. He was stripped of his world titles, WBA and I believe IBF. I think he was stripped of the WBA and IBF. I think because he was supposed to face his IBF mandatory or something like that, and he went and faced Floyd instead, or something like that. I don't know what it was, but he didn't have the titles when he came back. And he didn't have any because he didn't beat the other two guys that he beat, Juan Loscanzo and Paulie Malignaggi. Oh, Paulie had a title. But somehow he was stripped because I think he wanted to face Pacquiao instead of his mandatory. I think it was the IBF title Paulie had. Because of that, he didn't have any world titles. And again, today, just to explain this again to some people, a world title today is not the Ring Magazine title, is not the lineal title, okay? There are 4 belts which are considered world title and they determine undisputed. Like I said before, all right, so for people to understand, you can't have a lineal champion without a champion, okay? This is common sense, okay? You have to first have a champion first, and then the guy who beats the guy would be the lineal champion if he beats him, all right? So that's how lineal champions begin, the guy who beats the guy. So you can't have a lineal champion without a champion. So what we're trying what because of undisputed, which thanks to EJ started showing who was the first undisputed champion, which I can get it from the color case. It doesn't really matter. Jack Johnson was the first undisputed champion. I could agree with that. They were talking about unified undisputed. I can go that line, or I can go with the traditional line, which is that the first undisputed champion, as far as we do know, was Jack Sharkey. Was it Jack Sharkey, or it was Jack Sharkey versus the German guy, right? Or was it the Jack? No, it was Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey was the first undisputed. All right, whatever, don't care. Okay, because I think Jack Dempsey got the NYSAC and the NBA. So that's the traditional way of looking at it. If you want to include what EJ said, the colored fighters, then he was unified. But regardless, okay. As you move down, you're gonna get to the first undisputed champion. Okay, this is the point of the whole thing. Now, I hear some people say that Rocky Rocky Marciano ducked, for example, or he did not face certain black fighters. That is not true. All right, the top black fighters in the division were there. Okay, he faced Ezra Charles. They were all black. Jersey Joe Walker, and Joe Louis. Okay. Um, uh, Floyd Patterson wasn't on the scene. Okay. Rocky, when he was starting to retire, Floyd Patterson was 17 years old when he became heavyweight champion of the world. He wasn't ready for Rocky. He was 16 years old when Rocky left. Okay. And about a year and some months later, he faced Archie Moore. Okay. So, and then those people who were saying that what's his name? The guy that beat Floyd Patterson, that Muhammad Ali beat. Okay. Oh, for some reason I just blanked out on that. That's okay. He wasn't around till the 1960s. In fact, he faced Floyd Patterson in 1962, 1963, several years after the fact. Okay. And he came up the ranks, and we see his professional ranks and so on. And he was nowhere near even that at professional level with professional fighters. So, when people say, like EJ was saying that Rocky ducked some people, he ducked nobody. He didn't duck nobody. That's just the tail of the tape. That's just what was. Cleveland Williams was coming up with the same time with the same guy that I just talked about. They was not nowhere near that place. That's why, I sometimes I check over to see if anybody ducked anybody. All right. Rocky Marciano didn't duck nobody. He didn't duck dodge nobody. He left boxing because he was at the top of the game. There was nobody else at the top to face. So he left boxing. Okay. He was done. The only thing you can fault Rocky Marciano's resume when you compare other greats is that he only had like 4 greats, right? Then of course, the guy that gave him some problems was La Starza. Right? La Starza gave him a little bit of problems. But most of the other guys were like journeymen and guys in his local area. Okay, so Rocky kind of fought more in his local area of New York. And, he fought over here white guys. Let's be real. Some of them, and some of them, again, the debutants and all kinds of shit. So that's where they fought him. It's Rocky Marciano faced the best. All right? Now, some of them guys was little guys. Sure. Ezra Charles and Archie Moore, they were little guys, really, because Archie Moore got knocked out in 4 rounds against Floyd Patterson. Okay, Floyd Patterson was 17 years old. He knocked him out like starching, and Archie Moore was just what, 39. He was only 39. He went on to fight till he was 40 something. Okay, so I mean, it's like you gotta understand. Rocky faced some really great names, some of the greatest names in boxing. The conditions weren't the most ideal. You know what I mean? I never will take away from him beating Jersey Joe Walker. Joe Louis was done. So we're not going to talk about Joe Louis, okay? Joe Louis was done. He walked in there to get a paycheck. Right, good. Rocky gave him a paycheck, knocked his ass out. But Jersey Joe Walker was a valid heavyweight who Rocky Marciano beat. He beat the guy that beat Ezra Charles twice, right? So you can't fault Rocky Marciano for the level of competition he had. That was the competition he had in his time. He was at the top of the game. And you know what? I'm beginning to realize, even I'm guilty of it. I say this fighter ducks this fighter and this talking about. Man, how much more does the fighter have to prove themselves? You know what I'm saying? When you face the best in everywhere, and you know, people always say, "Well, what about this fighter?" And then there's always a new one. What about that one? What about that one? What about that one? They're not even top ranked. They just got a good win, and they're like, "What about that guy?" You know what I'm saying? So you know, it is what it is. I mean, but Rocky, you know, did a tremendous job with the guys who the top guys that he had of his time. Okay. You know, yeah, he fought a bunch of, you know, other guys who were definitely not top guys. Okay. Um, but you know, he fought those tough fights. He fought every single fight he had with those guys, those top guys, the Jersey Joe Walcott, not so much Joe Louis, but Jersey Joe Walcott and Ezra Charles and Archie Moore. Those were all tough fights. All tough fights. You know, for a guy that really didn't have that kind of championship experience. So you gotta give him his props. And there's a reason why he's called a great. I've seen a lot of people tearing him down on forums and stuff. No, no, no. And the guy had a systematic way of approaching things. He'd go to your body, break you down before he come over the top. You know, he took a lot of punishment in the process and even got dropped, like Joe Kazaki. But he come back as a true champion, man. He rebound and he would keep on working. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things I think a lot of people, and he was kind of smart how he set you up. He was watching your reaction, watch what you do, and that's how he got to counter you. I mean, you gotta give him his props, man. Rocky was a smart boxer, puncher, swarmer, that kind of thing, rough and rugged. But you know, you gotta give him his props. You gotta give him a relentless pressure fighter, relentless pressure. You know, you knock him down like Aaron Pryor, he get back up, and he coming for you. He's coming for you. He coming. All right. Your best shot is not going to stop him. He's going to get back up and keep coming, you know, and you have to give him his props for that. So a lot of people, you know, that's why they say he's the greatest heavyweight and all of this stuff. It's not just because he's white, but just the pressure, the mental pressure that's put on a boxer. You give him his best shot, which usually would knock out somebody, and he got back up from that shit. You know, and Julio says the job is the same thing. You know, give him the best shot, man. The dude didn't go away. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I just wanted to put those things out there. When Rocky left the scene, right? Rocky left the scene, there was a vacancy. There was the break in the lineage. Okay. There was nobody out there who was the lineal champion. All right. Rocky was undisputed. Okay. And he left. So after Rocky left, so Rocky didn't duck or dodge nobody. No black fighter. He fought all the black fighters. So y'all, and that was Murderers Row black fighters, by the way, at their peak weight. But nonetheless, fought two Murderers Row black fighters. He fought Ezra Charles and Archie Moore. Okay. So you got to give him his props for that. That's as good as them guys used to be dodged like the plague. You know what I'm saying? Ezra Charles broke through. He got his thing. You know, Archie Moore didn't get it, but he, you know, dominated light heavyweight. So I mean, I'm just saying that, you know, that's how that went. Now, some people will say, well, Archie Moore and Ezra Charles, they were about the same size as Rocky Marciano. The difference, though, when you come up in heavyweight, like that's all you did was fight guys at heavyweight. It's different. All right, them guys didn't fight at heavyweight. They came up to heavyweight, and then they started fighting heavyweights. You know, certain heavyweights, not all heavyweights, and usually those heavyweights came from light heavyweight. Rocky never came from light heavyweight. You know, these are the things that, you know, a lot of people don't realize. So it's not just that you're the same size or the same weight. It's also what kind of punishment were you taking at that weight class? That's why some people say Marcus was too small for Floyd. Um, at the time, because he just came up from lightweight, jumped up 2 weight classes, and started fighting with Floyd. But if you really watch the fight, Floyd is just outboxing Marquez. Okay, he dropped him, but Marquez always get dropped in fights, so that's nothing new. It wasn't Floyd's power that was troubling Marquez; it was his skills. See, these are the things that I try to talk to people about. Like Floyd had a lot of skill. Marquez would tell you he was a difficult style because every time Marquez tried to respond and hit Floyd, he couldn't find him in space. Floyd would be right in front of him, but he'd be swinging and missing. Floyd would be able to dip down and then snap back, and Marcus throw a whole combination, go off balance, going across the ring, hitting nothing but air. And for Marcus, it's like Floyd's just not there. He hit me, but I can't find him. Even heard Emmanuel Burton. I'm just talking a little bit about Floyd right now, because Floyd, I think what's my dude's name? The hip hop artist. I think he interviewed Floyd. He interviewed Mike Tyson. He interviewed Roy. I forgot what his name, Joe. And the cool thing about the whole thing is that Floyd was talking about what he was a pioneer of, and a lot of people don't realize Floyd was a pioneer of independent anti-doping testing by independent anti-doping agencies. He's also a pioneer of making exhibitions look big and people looking at showcasing exhibitions and putting it on TV and stuff. Okay. Floyd, so was talking about his exhibitions. Everybody doing exhibitions, right? Floyd started teaching students. I'm not saying that fighters weren't teaching students, but he started teaching students boxing, and everybody showcasing themselves teaching boxing. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying he's a pioneer of a lot of things, and he still to this day has a lot of sway. Now let me say something else about Floyd, which a lot of you guys don't realize. I always try to break down his skill set, which is a lot, but I'm gonna say this about Floyd. Floyd Mayweather is still the face of boxing. Anytime Floyd says something or does something in the media, everybody responds to it positively or negatively, and the boxers themselves start responding to it. Floyd's the first boxer in this modern age to cross over MMA with boxing in a severely big way. Now, James Toney did it. He went into the cage though, and trying to remember, it's 2 or 3 other boxers, and then Holly Holm, she jumped into the cage and she literally won. She was a professional boxer who went across the route to MMA. So while people say, well, most boxers don't listen, Holly Holm did it. All right, so let's stop with that. Yeah, usually boxers just jump into the cage, they gonna get licked up, right? Just like how Conor McGregor, he just jumped into the ring and he got licked up. Okay, you got to prepare for years, and then you can do that transition. With respect to anyway, Mayweather, he's a pioneer of making these crossover fights now. Now, Ali did something like that in the past and so on, but not on that scale, not on that level, and not as an actual fight, which is something that Roy Jones Jr. wanted to do. And Floyd sort of piggybacked off of that, given the nice conditions that were there. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna. What happens is, you know, a lot of times we as fans, we want a certain fighter to be a certain way, and we don't like certain fighters. Let's be real. And we have different agendas, like how we go in on versus Rocky Marciano. The guy I was talking about that people say, well, why didn't he face Sonny Liston? Sonny Liston wasn't even around. Ninjas. Sonny Liston wasn't even around when Rocky was there. Sonny Liston was fighting like what fighters. He wasn't fighting big fighters, man. All right, but it is what it is. And even Cleveland Williams, great fighters, but you know they wasn't really around on the scene. They wasn't top dogs. They wasn't top guys. You know what I mean? They weren't. Um, they were still developing their careers. Um, but anyway, what I'm saying is, you know, you find a reason to try and tear down a fighter, and I'm guilty of that to some respect. Sometimes I look at other fighters and I try to find flaws and chinks in their armor because I feel that one fighter is more superior to them. But to be honest with you, man, that's not the way how it should go. We should objectively look at each fighter for their contributions of what they have brought to the sport of boxing. You know. Anywho, um, so you know, okay, talking about all these fantastic boxes that they have out here, it makes me happy to talk about this, you know. But yeah, when it comes to the lineal championship, Rocky Marciano was the lineal champion as well as he was the undisputed champion. It was a break in that uh, when Rocky Marciano uh, right. So yeah, I was saying is that all right, buddy. Yeah, what I'm saying is that Rocky Marciano, you know, he was champion, no doubt about that. He was champion and so on, but after he left, there was a vacancy in who was undisputed. All right. Now, when it comes to, I think Floyd Patterson won the undisputed championship. Okay, he beat Archie Moore, became the next undisputed champion, and then I think he was beaten by, I forgot what the guy's name is, and he rematched the guy and he beat him, and then he went on to be beaten by Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston didn't stay world champion for very long, but um, Sonny Liston was more two different people even before that, but that was in the 60s. And Muhammad Ali beat him. So, how did this become reestablished? Well, because Archie Moore fought with um, Floyd Patterson, we got back a new undisputed champion. Floyd Patterson became the new undisputed champion. He had the NYSEC. So those two faced each other, the top two guys, which is Archie Moore. 1 year later, Archie Moore and the other top draw was Floyd Patterson. So they fought each other. Floyd Patterson won, and he sort of reestablished undisputed. And then after he got beat by the other guy, he was part of the lineage, but then Floyd Patterson beat him back. So Floyd Patterson was now lineal champion as well as undisputed. And then Sonny Liston beat Floyd Patterson. Okay, he beat Floyd Patterson, and because of that, Sonny Liston became the new lineal undisputed champion. And then Muhammad Ali beat Sonny Liston. All right, I think that's how it goes. I can always check it up and verify. What does this mean? This means that the undisputed champion, uh, undisputed champion, is carried on. And all I can say to people is, that um not only is it carried on through the lineage, but being the lineal champion was as an honor, but it never added to somebody becoming undisputed. And so the sanctioning bodies made these world championship belts. It was the WBC, the WBA, been around longer than the ring. Uh, and the WBC, aka the NYSEC, been around since 1920. The NBA, aka the WBA, been around since 1921, and the ring came out in 1922. So the Ring Magazine belt is actually younger than those two belts, as much as people try to make it sound like it's, you know. All right, so that's all I got for now. So I just wanted to discuss the lineal championship, okay? Because, well, in the case, we're talking about heavyweights, but you have lineal championships in every single division. If you do remember, well, Sugar Ray Robinson retired from boxing. I can't really count that, but he was the lineal champion when he was beaten by Joey Maxim. He came back out of boxing, came back into boxing. Wasn't any champion because he relinquished all his belts. He wasn't a world champion, but he was still the lineal champion of 160. So when he faced, I think it was Bobo Olson, and beat him, he was the lineal champion, but also the undisputed champion of the world. I'm trying to remember what happened in the space between where he. So what happens is, let's say, for instance, Bobo Olson creates his own lineage. All right, like with Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier, when Muhammad Ali left boxing, Joe Frazier became the new champion. He was the WBC, WBA unified champion. Nobody beat him, though. So that person who would have beaten Joe Frazier would have been the new lineal champion. But if that guy, the new lineal champion, if Muhammad Ali came back into boxing and that guy was there, the new lineal champion who's undisputed, he'd no longer be lineal. Why? Because the real lineal champion came back into boxing. And now, because of that, you want to beat the man that beat the man, right? And if Joe Frazier didn't face Muhammad Ali and he got beaten and he was undisputed, that's cool. He was the man. But Ali supersedes him. So it's only an honorary thing. Let me just let you know. So if Ali would lose to the guy who beat Joe Frazier, for instance, this is a hypothetical situation, then that guy would have become the lineal undisputed champion of the world. All right, and it carries a lot more honor with the fans, as EJ was saying, but it's not official. It's not an official thing. Okay, and that's the thing that a lot of people don't get. So when we talk about world titles, lineal is not a world title. Never has been. In fact, lineal went back to when there were no world titles. Right? It was just an understood something. So that's what it is. The lineal championship don't really got no belt for it. It's a traditional thing. It goes way back. Right? So it's tradition. It's like I said before, kings and queens. Kings and queens go way back. But now kings and queens don't really have any official governing powers except signing and sealing things, the usual bureaucracy. But the guys who actually have the official power are the prime ministers of, say, for instance, the UK. It's like that. It's an honorary title. I'm gonna catch you guys later. I'm what you need. I hope you enjoyed this video. Peace.